All right, guys, welcome in. Cube Show College Football Podcast coming to you on Sundays. This week, a little bit different because we wanted to get through the national championship game. Monday ended up being a fiasco because of the weather. The kids, for some reason, didn't go to school, even though there wasn't a drop of snow anywhere to be found, not a single flake. But we had a nice day, and it was a digital learning day. So I took the kids to Dave & Buster's, and we played a bunch of video games. And hopefully they learned something about math and risk reward when we did that. We always have Wickles Pickles right here at home. We snack on them. We love them. We've got these. Tell your grocery store if they don't have them, they need to get them. They need to get them in so you can buy them and you can be a part of them and you can find those things. We're going to talk national championship game today, talk a little bit of college football as well. Probably going to get a little bit of a rant from me towards the end here because there are some things people are saying. I don't know if they're just lying or if they're having fun with it. But I've been shocked by some of the response of the playoff, the champion, how things went, really the entire season, and then specifically the championship game, which apparently a lot of you guys didn't watch. And good for you because I'm going to recap it and let you know exactly how it went down. It gets started right out of the gate with Notre Dame. It's 18-play, 75-yard drive, and it looks like, okay, the Irish have got this thing figured out, man. Like they know exactly what to do, and they take it down there for 9 minutes and 45 seconds. Here's what I saw early on, though. And I actually saw this watching it live and going back and watching the film, I saw it a little bit more. Now, was it impressive? Yes. Riley Leonard, tough as nails. Love seeing how he did, how he acted, how he directed that team down there. The difference was there were individual wins happening by the Ohio State defensive line during that drive. Tyleik Williams would get off a block, or Ty Hamilton would strike and shed. And whether it was a cutback or whether they just couldn't find their way to the ball, or just on that play, it wasn't one they were going to be able to make. And Jack Sawyer, kind of the same thing. Some of the linebackers maybe overran a play a little bit, but I'm watching that front four thinking, nah, that might not be sustainable because there's going to come a point in time where that does end up being a TFL, or that does end up being a pressure on the quarterback, and they'll get things figured out. So the defense calms down a little bit, backs off to a certain extent. And I thought Caleb Downs would be the key here. And I didn't think Jim Knowles was overly aggressive with Caleb Downs, which ended up being a great thing. And especially after that first drive where you would have thought his rear end is going to be on the line of scrimmage the rest of the game, either humming off the edge, coming down the middle, or at least standing there trying to take on a block, playing that Notre Dame run game. That did not happen. And I think what Jim Knowles and his staff saw was, hold on, they figured it out on that drive, but we were getting wins. We feel good about our spots. We're going to be okay. And they were. I first off give Notre Dame a ton of credit, man. They battled back. They were out of this game, just like multiple other games in this playoff. They were left for dead. No one thought they had a chance, and they found a way to get back in it and almost found a way to go win it, cutting that thing to 8 late. But it was rough when you see the first 4 drives for Ohio State go right down there and score touchdowns. And the first 5 drives, you get scores in that game. I thought it was a masterful plan from Chip Kelly. I thought it was a good plan from Jim Knowles. But at the end of the day, big players made big plays. And it wasn't 1 or 2 guys. I thought Cody Simon, Sonny Styles at times made big plays. I thought up front, whether it was Sawyer, JT, Tyleik Williams, I thought had a good game. I thought Ty Hamilton had a good game. Caleb Downs did some really good things. This was a team effort from Ohio State all the way around, but it was some of those elite individuals that continue to just make plays over and over. Defensively, the pressure on Riley Leonard from the front four was a problem. I don't recall, and I've watched it a couple of times now, him on not a quick route, like not a 1-2-3, get the ball out, but on a traditional drop, literally having time to just set up and deliver a ball, specifically getting off his first read. It was a lineman in his face. It was pressure that he saw coming, and he had to step up, move around. He couldn't get comfortable. And some of his passes were off or errant a little bit, and I don't even really think that was him. I think he felt the pressure, saw the pressure, and then a lot of times the pressure actually got to him. So, and he maneuvered well, and he got out of it a couple of times. It's just those 2 linebackers can fly, man, and those edge defenders are quick, and they close space and close the gap on a lot of things. I thought 44 and 33 did a good job playing flat down the line of scrimmage and keeping cutback runs from going. I did wonder kind of where Jeremiah Love was a little bit. I don't know his exact status. I thought all in all, Jagusaw did a pretty good job at left tackle, holding up for a while, a couple bull rushes that got him. One I thought Leonard could have stepped up on when there was a little bit of pressure there. Jaden Greathouse had an awesome game, came up big late on a couple of massive throws. Mitchell Evans, who we told you, take the more from Prize Picks on that one. He had a nice game, came on a little bit later, didn't happen early, but made some big catches down the stretch and a couple catch and runs that sort of helped Notre Dame stay in that game. But it just wasn't consistent, and it couldn't consistently go. The run game for the Notre Dame offense wasn't there, and it was going to have to be built around that. They were going to need to move the quarterback off that, and they couldn't get it done consistently. If that wasn't going to be there, you were going to turn into a drop back team. This receiving core, not individuals, because Greathouse probably face on can get open. Got a little bit of Bo Collins. There's no way he's close to 100%. You just weren't going to be able to separate and continue to win either in one-on-ones or against zone. And then Riley Leonard wasn't going to be able to hold up because the offensive line couldn't protect to the extent that they needed to. So that lack of a consistent rushing attack, and the main reason it was there on the first drive was Riley Leonard. And then that kind of going away after the 3 and out and a couple penalties on the second drive, that was about it for what they were going to consistently be able to do in this game. But it was a nice performance by the Ohio State defense, taking some of those things away and not letting them be able to really sit down. A couple of the other things that I liked specifically, I mean, if you go to those numbers, when Notre Dame was on offense, when you knew what had to happen, what that roadmap was, it wasn't probably 255 yards from Riley Leonard. He did throw 2 touchdowns, 22 of 31, but he ran 17 times for 40 yards. Next after that was Jadarian Price, 3 for 13. Love, 4 for 3. Now, you had to get away from it later to try to get back in the game, and I totally understand that. It's just early on when you needed to lean on it, it wasn't going to be there. Greathouse, 6 for 128, 2 touchdowns. He was awesome. Mitchell Evans, 4 for 52. He was great. And Bo Collins, not 100%, 4 for 32. He added. But that offensive line's dinged up. We know that. You don't have a ton of juice at wideout, and consistently not being able to run the ball just wasn't going to allow Notre Dame to stay in this game. Solid game from that Ohio State defense, who just flat out, the first 2 times I watched this game, I kept thinking, like, where is it? Like, and then I kind of kept coming back to it, and it was Ohio State didn't have to do a lot defensively. They won up front, and they picked and chose their spots to be aggressive in different areas, and that was enough of a problem for Notre Dame for them to kind of stay in that. This wasn't glamorous blitz packages and rolling different coverages all the time. It was just guys winning, really and truly, and it was more team speed. That's what I saw when I watched it. On the other side of the ball, it was a little bit different, even though it was big players making big plays. You had a couple of big runs from Quinchon. Travion had a good game. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith was incredible. I mean, the first catch where he just like shoves the DB off of him, you're like, all right, he's letting people know he's here, and this might be a long day. I didn't think it was so much the passing game, though, as to where Chip wanted to build the game plan around, and we'll talk about that in a second. Egbuka great in this game. Jeremiah Smith, 5 for 88 and a touchdown. The big 53-yard catch on 3rd and 11, obviously massive. That put the game away. He's wide open. You can't cover him one-on-one there. I know Al Golden's trying to go up the middle and pressure Will Howard, but Will Howard hung in there. It was a great pickup by the back. He delivers that pass. That's essentially nail in the coffin. Judkins, 11 for 100, 2 touchdowns. Will Howard, 16 for 57. Remember that. We're going to talk about that in a minute because I think that was massive. He was 17 of 21, 231, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He was efficient. Started 13 for 13 in this game. That's a championship game record. His completion percentage at 81 is also a championship game record for BCS or college football playoff. More than anything else, it was the decisions that he made. When to tuck the ball and run. When to get the ball out. What routes to wait on. Seeing coverages and understanding, all right, that deep crosser is going to be open here. We're going to be able to get that. Or I better hit this whip route right now. I better get this ball out quickly to my tight end. Like, go to the screen game here. And you saw him directing traffic at the line of scrimmage often in this game. Even on the film, not just the game copy. Like, you could see it, what he was doing. Egbuka, 6 for 64. Tate, 2 for 35. They were just too much. And without that Egbuka fumble, by the way, like that game's put away a lot earlier. But the thing that I saw more so than anything else, I thought the tight ends really had a nice game. I thought the offensive line played well, did have a couple of breakdowns in pass protection, but this is a good pass rushing group that they played against. I thought Cross and Highness gave great effort, did some good things. Bryce Young got washed down a little bit. That was a bit of a problem up front. 27 really came up and did some good things at and around the line of scrimmage. RJ Oben was good against the run at times, and we thought those edge defenders were going to be the difference here, and it ended up they were the difference in a different way. It wasn't getting hooked and those outside runs being able to go. It was cutback runs and nobody being home. And that's on the backers a little bit too, as I thought they were maybe overly aggressive in this game. But here's what I really saw from the Ohio State offense. I thought Chip Kelly took a couple of plays that he wanted to try to build around, and it worked. We'll talk about these in a second. I'm going to show you a couple of them. But Chip Kelly essentially went in and said, I'm going to give you some movement pre-snap. Al Golden, I'm going to try to figure out what your coverage scheme is going to be. We're going to throw off that, and we're going to call our run game off this. And they came up with a downhill attack that was consistent. Now, that's what's a little bit different, because you go to the Michigan game, and it was perimeter, downhill late. Even in the playoffs, they pick and chose their spots when to act as sort of a downhill running team. It was start to finish in this game. All right, I got to tell you guys about Fanatics Live. You know about Fanatics.com, whether you need jerseys, hats, all your team gear. You can go there, pick up memorabilia. They got autographed baseballs. They got autographed bats. They got everything from your favorite team, your favorite player right there at Fanatics.com. But Fanatics Live, if you are getting back into the hobby, kind of like I am because of my two young boys, you're going to need to know about Fanatics Live. A lot of these cards are expensive. A lot of these cards we can't go out and purchase a box of. But Fanatics Live gives you the option to get into different arenas to try to pick up different cards at a much different price. You get into a break for $15, $8, $9, and you got a chance to pick up some of these high-value cards from some of these sets and boxes that you're not going to be able to go out and purchase on your own. Or you might not want to go out and buy a pack of or a box of or a case of. And now at Fanatics Live, you're able to do that. So go to your app store. Easy to find. Got it loaded right on my phone. Bam. You hit Fanatics Live right there, and you're going to have a ton of options to be able to go see different people breaking different cards in different places. And maybe you can get back in the game like I have because of my two boys. Fanatics Live, it's in the App Store. Go check it out now and get it on your laptop, fanaticslive.com, and you can go mess around there. Try to find some football cards, maybe find some baseball cards, pick up one of those big autos, a 1-for-1. And just kind of mess around, tinker around in there. They got the college football cards. We were breaking some of those over at Pizza Pools last week. I'll be doing that weekly there now. So when you go into the Fanatics Live, search Pizza Pools, and I'll be in there once a week. Maybe we'll get some more Chrome Sapphire. We'll get some more Bowman Best. We'll pull some of those college football cards, try to get those autographs, 1-for-1s, relics for you, and see if you like those, and you can get that going. All right, so split zone, split duo, with a scissors concept sometimes is what I thought Chip Kelly used in a masterful fashion. We'll give you a couple variances of this, why it worked, why it was successful. The cutbacks off of it were uniquely successful in this game for Ohio State. Remember, when we previewed this game, we talked about the biggest concern was the Ohio State run game getting out on the edges because of linebacker run through. That was going to be a problem. That was going to potentially be an issue because Al Golden loves to run those guys through, be aggressive, and then use them on pressures as well. So this is early in the game. Receiver comes across in motion. He'll be the splitter back across. You get the duo from the offensive line, but it's that cutback from Travion because of the linebacker run through where he's able to find this gap. So there you see the run through. Travion makes a little bit of move in the backfield, and then the cutback there is going to go for big yardage. So a couple of things that Chip Kelly was seeing off this. Coverage going to be designated by the motion pre-snap, and then obviously they're going to be able to use that. And then that cut from Travion after the linebacker got a little bit lost and the offensive lineman gets up him, went for big yards. Now, this is a little bit of a setup for what was going to come a little bit later in the game. So we'll go to next time you're going to see it, motion into the box and then acts as the splitter coming across. It almost ends up looking like a little bit of a counter play sort of, but you'll see the back. Quinshawn gives you that one and then across. So it gets counter motion from the back, but it's blocked as duo by the offensive line. Emphasis on those double teams, the splitter coming across. But look at that cutback. The thing you need to keep your eyes on mostly here are the linebackers flowing with that splitter. Look at them just fly across. That gives the cutback lane, and Quinshawn Judkins able to pick up nice yards again. So now Al Golden is having his linebackers flow with that splitter or they're running through. So Chip Kelly's seen some things that he can build on it. Now, a lot of folks that peed their pants about Jeremiah Smith's touchdown and how they put him in motion and how cool it was. The orbit return motion, quick throw to him. That's great and all. But what I want you to watch is what happens in the backfield. Yep, it's that same look. It's that split zone duo, whatever you want to call it, with a scissors concept, which is where the back kind of shows counter, play action off of that, and your receiver's wide open. That play was getting a lot of attention on the first two drives because of the yards that were being gained. So just play action off of it, then become successful there. What do we have here? Well, similar look. You don't get the splitter this time, but you get the same play, faking that scissors concept on the duo run. You see the offensive lineman come off, this pass protection. They're not really showing run, but they're not obviously taking pass sets. Will Howard, a nice fake. He comes out. You get the deep crosser. Bam. Receiver's wide open. Just once again, using that play as a baseline for what you're kind of building your offense around. So then we'll come to an actual run play again. You once again, H-back, tight end, lined up right behind the offensive tackle there. He's going to split across. Now, you're not going to get the scissors concept here with a step back that looks like counter motion from the running back. So this will be more just straight ahead duo. And it's actually played fairly well by the linebackers. The splitter actually brings them into where Quinshon's going to want to cut this ball back, but he just has enough juice, and there's a little bit of commotion there where he's going to cut this thing outside, make a couple guys miss, run through some tackles, and get the touchdown. More of a bear defense here that you're showing from Notre Dame, where you've got the center and almost two guards covered up, really out in the 4-eye on one. But that allows the bounce back, and those linebackers now beginning to really attack the line of scrimmage because of the success that Ohio State was having in the run game. Finally, receiver motion in. He's the splitter again. The cutback is what we referenced was massive for Ohio State. Watch the backers go with that splitter across. You see, once again, 24 starts the run through, doesn't finish the run through. That's where Jack Kaiser gets caught a little bit. Quinshon cuts it back, and then it's a house call for Ohio State. This was the play that I thought the majority of things were built off of for Chip Kelly. And it was really uniquely designed because it gave you a lot of different things. It gave you a power run element downhill. If you found that you were going to be able to get movement, you could live there, just keep running duo inside zone, get that push, and just lean. If not, and your linebackers were playing quick with the splitter that was coming across, well, all of a sudden, you knew then you were probably going to have some cutback lanes. You stick with more of a duo call or the scissors concept, which is the back giving you the one, back over, and then he gets the cutbacks out of that. And then, of course, if it all is working, then you hit the play action shots off of it, and there you go, Heidi-ho bungalow down the field. So I thought Chip Kelly had an excellent game plan. I thought he called an excellent game. A lot of pre-snap shifts in motion, which got him the coverage calls. And then two, I think when you're looking at some of the routes that were designed, those pre-snap motions and shifts and movement told him if it was going to be man coverage or zone coverage. And he had zone beaters, he had man beaters, some of those crossers that you saw that were wide open, and some of the return routes, the whip routes that Ohio State ran. You have to know what coverage you're going to get there if they're going to work to that effect. Very difficult to stick with, very hard to cover, specifically in zone if the safeties are trying to replace down. It's just going to be tough for them to hang with them. When you have receivers like Ohio State, it's just going to be tough to cover. So that was one thing I wanted to pull and show you guys that I just thought was uniquely cool as to how this game went and to how Chip Kelly sort of drew it up and began to utilize it. It was a great game for Jeremiah Smith. I thought Jeremiah Smith was fantastic. Obviously, the 3rd and 11 catch down the field. It was awesome. Quinshon Judkins goes for 100 yards, first back in a championship game with 100 yards, a touchdown run, a touchdown reception. And so, I mean, he was awesome in this game. Travion was awesome in this game. There was one aspect offensively that I don't think is really being talked about enough for Ohio State, and it's the tight ends. I thought the tight ends were really good in this game. Did they catch 20 balls for 3 touchdowns? No. But the way that they blocked it up, I thought was just absolutely fantastic. Down on the goal line, there were a couple combo blocks specifically from 89 that got off on a linebacker and got good movement at the point of attack. There were a couple out on screens. There was a miss here and there, but that's okay. G. Scott had a good game blocking. And I think that when you're talking about the splitters and then having 2 tight end sets sometimes where one stays, gives you a little extra line of scrimmage there, widens the surface. That allows for some of those cutback lanes to be able to go. I mean, Ebuka was great again, but guys, Will Howard is the star of the show. And if you're talking about whether it's an MVP of this tournament, an MVP of this game, it's got to be Will Howard, who helped Ohio State get their 7th title, first since 2014. Ohio State's the 5th AP top 5 win for them this year. That's the most in the AP poll era since 1939. No other team's done it. Now, I know it's more games, but still, they did it on this amazing playoff run. 2nd team in FBS history with 2,000-yard rushers, 2,000-yard receivers, and a 4,000-yard passer. That's being different players all through there. So you can take the context however you want and throw in 2018 Oklahoma. The one aspect offensively, though, the tight ends were great. Multiple players had good games. Will Howard played well. However, the part of this offense, I think, that helped separate things and really got this game done outside of the play that I just showed you, using that in different ways, plain and simple, were Will Howard's legs. Will Howard was exceptional in this championship game with his legs. And he was really good with his legs in this entire tournament. I'm going to run through something that he did during this tournament. These are Will Howard runs for first downs in the college football playoff this year. Ohio State against Tennessee gets a 2nd and 5. He runs for 10. A 3rd and 1. He runs for 6. Against Oregon, they get a 3rd and 2. He runs for 3. Against Texas, you had a 4th and 2. He gives you an 18-yard run. You have a 2nd and 1. He runs for 2. That was the one that pretty much iced the game there towards the end. Now, it ramped up a lot because you don't have to protect him as much in this game against Notre Dame, and you also see how it's going to be successful. I mean, they had a little quarterback power where the back would widen out. You pull that backside guard, and he get north and south. He was fantastic with that play in this game. So here we go, run plays in the championship game. 3rd and 3, he runs for 5, a touchdown 2 plays later. You get a 3rd and 5 the next series, he runs for 11. You get a 3rd and 2, he runs for 3. You get a touchdown on the next play. 2nd and 10, he runs for 11 yards. You get a touchdown 2 plays after that. 2nd and 6, he runs for 3. So he doesn't get the first down on that one, but then they score a touchdown on the next play. A 2nd and 6 later in the game, he runs for 7, gets you a first down. 2nd and 3, he only runs for 2, but then you get a 3rd and 1 on the next play, and he runs for 2 more, and he picks you up a first down. 2nd and 9, he runs for 11 yards. That continued the drive there. When he picked up that 2nd and 9 for 11, there was 8:43 on the clock. They wouldn't score a touchdown on that drive, but they would get it to 6:25. Keep in mind, Notre Dame cut this thing to 8. That right there took a massive chunk of clock off that drive. 2nd and 7 later in the game, he runs for 8, and then essentially it's over. He ran for 13 first downs in this tournament. 13. 6 of those came on 3rd down. 1 of those came on 4th down. He was responsible for both 4th down conversions that Ohio State had in the playoff. He was 28 for 95 yards rushing. Also, keep in mind, he only had 226 rushing yards on the season. His legs were phenomenal in this game against Notre Dame. And it's not just that he ran past people or ran over people. It was the decision-making more than anything else. A couple of pulls on zone reads when he had great reads and knew to get outside and get that thing north and south. Like I said, the quarterback powers, when that back would widen out, you take the snap, guard pulls around, he got downhill in a hurry. There was no thought process of wait and see the hole open up. He knew we got to get yards now, and he ran that exactly the way that you would want him to. In the tournament, he was 82 for 109, 1,150 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. On the season, completed 73% of his passes, 4,010 yards, 35 touchdowns, 10 picks. Folks, Will Howard is your MVP of this college football playoff. It's not debatable. Jeremiah Smith was amazing in game 1, had the 3rd and 11 reception in the final game to pretty much put Notre Dame away. But Will Howard got it done with his arm, with his legs, in must-have plays, must-have downs, must-have moments. Will Howard made the plays. He, to me, it's not even debatable, should be the MVP of this football team this year, and most importantly, the MVP of this tournament. He flat out made it happen. He altered his game. He knew big plays, big throws, big runs. He got it done. And you go back and think about where were the catastrophe plays in this tournament? Where were the back-breaking plays? Where were the big negative plays? Yeah, he had 2 interceptions, but you didn't see the huge mistakes from Will Howard in this tournament. So I commend him. I commend Ohio State. I was wrong on him going into this tournament. What I saw against Michigan and what I saw kind of off and on throughout the course of the year didn't give me a ton of confidence that they could hit this switch and be able to get this done. But also the run that they went on through this tournament needs to be respected. Oregon, a team that was undefeated in the regular season, you take care of them in the second game. Tennessee, who I thought would be more physical, was not. And then you go take a Notre Dame team that just all they did was find ways. Well, a Texas team that probably from a roster to roster standpoint was the closest to Ohio State in this tournament. And you knock them out. And then a Notre Dame team that was just the epitome of a team that consistently found ways to win. Special teams, defense, field position, offense, quarterback. Like they just found ways, explosive plays, kick returns, big runs. They found ways to win games. You found a way to put them away. So, like I said, I commend Ohio State for this run. I commend Ohio State for this national championship. And there are a couple of things about it that are a little bit frustrating to me. And I asked the question via Twitter of what were your initial thoughts of year 1 of a 12-team college football playoff? I also tweeted something out during the game. It was like middle 3rd quarter. And I said that at that time, Ohio State was 1,000% on 3rd down, 1,000% for touchdown on their drives. And I think Will Howard was completing like 86% of his passes, whatever it was. The amount of people that responded that said that they were not watching or were glad that they were not watching was mind-boggling. I need to know what those options are. So I asked in a very serious manner, not being a smartass, and the responses that I got to that were even scarier. That folks would pass up on live tackle football with 2 of the more traditional powers in college football history, playing for a trophy, playing for rings, for Cops and Hell's Kitchen and reruns of Color Me Bad or whatever the hell else they wanted to watch. I don't understand it. I don't know what's happening. I don't get it. But you give me live tackle football, specifically overly meaningful live tackle football, I'm going to be dialed into that. I don't need to go watch other things on Netflix or Hulu because I have live tackle football for a national championship. I can respect the two teams that are there and what's happening. And I just am a little bit concerned about the fact that we've gotten away from just wanting to watch that. I know if you love your team and you watch your team, that's great. I'm not against you. I'm not mad at you. It's just I'll take the football over selling Sunset or whatever the hell it is that my wife watches during the week. So the next responses then came when complimenting Ohio State on their championship about the $20 million roster. Folks, I got to wonder, I don't know why you're eating up with this. I don't know why this bothers you. I don't know why you're mad about this, because every team's doing it. Now, I did see a couple of people during the game that were taking Coach Saban's comments and saying that every team has the abilities to do this. Every team just needs to lean on their fan base, and every team can go out and do what Ohio State does. You, sir, are wrong and should probably stop watching college football if you truly believe that. Because if we're going to talk about Sun Belt teams and Mountain West teams being able to do what Ohio State can do, you, sir, are falsely mistaken, and I don't even know where you're from. Probably not this planet. But to get upset about a team that had the resources, rallied those resources, got them together, and did things within the rules, and I don't want to hear about tampering in the comments because every team is tampering, and they're tampering through agents. So technically, that's not tampering. If an agent goes to a kid and says, I can get you a deal somewhere else for this amount of money, kid says he likes that deal and he decides to leave, that ain't on the team that he goes to, folks. Sorry to break it to you. And are there coaches calling kids? Yeah. Are there coaches for your favorite team calling kids? There are. It's happening all over the place. The extent of it may be different at different places, but it's where we are in this game, and it's what's happening. It's why I love John Sumrall so much. When I talk to him about this stuff, he always just says, stop complaining, brother. Just adapt and go. Just figure it out. Everybody's dealing with it. We got to find a way to make it work. That's life in college football this day and age. So to get upset or to point a finger at Ohio State because they spent however many million on this roster, which, by the way, do we know it's 20? Do we know that every other team is less than that? Do we know that every other team is significantly less than that? I don't. And I talk to people about it all the time. I haven't seen the checks and balances sheet of what every team is spending and how close they are to the salary cap, because we all know there's not one. So we really don't know exactly where every team is. The other part about that frustrates me is if that's what it was, let's just hypothetically say that it was 20 million. What percentage of that do you think went to newcomers? Because the high paid newcomers are going to be Quinshon Judkins and Caleb Downs. Seth McLaughlin probably got some good money. Your corner from Ole Miss probably got some decent money. But the highest paid players were going to be Will Howard, who also came in. He was going to get a pretty good tag. And then probably something for a freshman receiver, probably something for your other receivers that stayed, probably for a running back so you were going to be able to have a duo named Travion Henderson was going to be there, and probably for some defensive linemen that could wreak havoc. Tyleik Williams, I bet, could have commanded a lot of money in the portal, just as Jack Sawyer could and just as JT could. So once again, the core of this football team are guys that have been there for 4 or 5 years. And folks, I got my teeth kicked in by Ohio State fans after the Tennessee game. So it's not even comfortable for me to sit here and defend them and say these things. But I just give it to you how I see it, and I give it to you what I think is real. And this is real to me. To complain about a roster and what you think they made because of what Twitter's telling you they made and think that other teams aren't doing it is blasphemous. It's just flat out dumb to sit there and think that other teams didn't have similar advantages and didn't spend similar money. Now, they had branding to go along with it. They had a massive fan base to go along with it, but they also had a core of guys that have been there for 4 or 5 years and a damn good coach and a damn good coaching staff to go along with it. Because Chip Kelly coached his ass off in this playoff. Ryan Day was able to somehow gather these troops and have this players-only meeting and be able to get in there and pull all this off and make this run, whereas most kids, and you want to talk about the problems with today's college football, how about most kids after they would have lost to Michigan would have been in the portal the next day? Doesn't matter about the playoff. Or at least would have shut it down and not giving you full effort and not be at the facility and not try to put in these extra hours. That, to me, shows more about your team than any whatever price tag or somebody got or tampering or anything like that. So I commend them again. I was wrong going in. I made that mistake, but it's a hell of a run, and it's an impressive national championship. The other part of this is asking people about where we were in that 12-team playoff. A lot of folks upset saying 12 is too many teams. A lot of folks saying we need to go back to computers. When I remember the BCS era, I remember all of you complaining about computers. And everyone said that this was dumb. We need the human element. Computers don't know what a team's been through. Computers don't know that a guy's banged up or that the quarterback was out or anything like that. So why would we want these algorithms to be able to select our teams that are going to play for a national title? Now people want this back? I can't I can't get down with that. I'm not. If you want to use that as a resource and use that as something that you help gauge where a team should be, great, go for it. I do think that it inherently takes a lot of the bias out of there, but you have to be someone in your heart that believes that everybody has bias in that, and that's how they make those decisions. I personally do not, but it's different for everyone. Too many teams, too long of a season, possibly, maybe. I can't remember the last time I complained about live tackle football being on my television. And I have a hard time believing that a lot of the folks that are saying this thing was too long actually do as well. I'll take that over Mary Poppins or Sanford and Son reruns, even though it will make you laugh, any day of the week. I love more football. That's why I love bowl games. And by the way, the people who are saying it's killing the bowl games, we had probably the best bowl season I've ever seen. Multiple games go to multiple overtimes, multiple one-score games, competitive games, back and forth games. I couldn't go back and tell you about every other bowl season and how great it was because I don't remember all the games, but this was the most memorable that I can come up with in the last 8-10 years when we're just talking about not championship level games, but the other bowl games that kids are going to compete in, which we all thought was going to be ruined, right? Weren't the bowl games going to be ruined because of the portal and because of all this money these guys were making? Now we're seeing guys play, some for a half, but they're playing. And they're in these games, and those games are becoming more entertaining and more fun also. There are a lot of problems in today's college football. There are a lot of things that need to be repaired and need to be cleaned up. But to sit here and try to slap everything that doesn't suit your team or suit your fandom as a massive problem across college football, I personally don't believe is the way to go about it. So I guess that's my rant for today. And the thing that kind of bothered me about some of the things that I was hearing, other people tell me that the regular season's now watered down. Did Miami-Syracuse have meeting late in the season? Did Auburn not essentially put A&M almost out with it, and they still had a chance against Texas. Texas A&M had meeting. There was one person that responded to me, said these rivalry games didn't have meeting this year. Did Carolina Clemson have a meeting? Because South Carolina thought they should have been in, and Clemson ended up getting in. That obviously had meeting. I know Alabama Auburn had meeting because Alabama was trying to get in still. I know Georgia Tech had a lot of meeting because you're still going to go to the SEC championship, but you dropped that one to Georgia Tech, and now all of a sudden things are very different in Atlanta. You're playing a whole different game at that point in time. I thought more games had a lot more meaning down the stretch, and it made November much more compelling. Now, the seeding, I'm not even going to go into it because I don't think anybody saw that coming. Prototypical fashion with where we are in today's college football with the decision makers of never trying to see the underbelly of what could happen as opposed to what you think will happen. See NIL, see 4-game red shirt rule and how guys are going to hit the door and essentially quit in the middle of the season when they've played their 4 games. For some reason, we just refuse to look at the underbelly and what could potentially happen with a lot of these things. And I think that was one of them. They settled on that, didn't think that it would ever be SMU, Boise, and things like that taking place and Arizona State getting a bye. But there we were. And we still get teams that are coming out of nowhere that are fun and impressive. SMU, we didn't think they could go a full season in the ACC, can be competitive. Rhett Lashley got them there and got that done. Arizona State, nobody saw Kenny Dillingham pulling that off and doing what they did. Scatterby was one of the more entertaining players in college football. So all in all, I think there was a lot of this year that was awesome, that was great, that was more fun and more entertaining. And we had more games, which is always good, and more important games, which is always great. So there are things that need to be cleaned up. Hopefully some will at some point. But I actually think that there's a little more evening out than people think by looking at certain teams and thinking they know what they're spending and thinking that they're just pulling away, because Ohio State having a roster similar to this is actually going to be more difficult next year and the next year and the next year, regardless of what they're spending, because the guys sticking around that it means a lot to is going to be harder and harder to have and harder to keep. Just my 2 cents on kind of where we are in college football today. Hey guys, don't forget about Blue Delta Jeans, the best denim company on earth. They're fit just for you. So they're going to be custom fit for you. So you're not buying these off the rack. The quads are too small. The rear end's hanging down. They're going to fit your body the way it sits right now because it's just for you. They can do this digitally as well. They have gift cards, stretchy, flexible, breathable. Probably don't want them too breathable right now in Alabama since it's 19 degrees. But I got my Blue Delta jeans on each and every day. I can wear them out to dinner with the wife. I can wear them to one of my kids' basketball games, or I can wear them to a speaking engagement because you can dress them up, dress them down, be casual. I don't own another pair of jeans anymore. It's all Blue Delta jeans. Thanks to my guys, Nick and those guys over at Blue Delta Jeans. They can do the same for you. Go to bluedeltajeans.com. Always appreciate you guys tuning in. Always appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Thanks for sticking with us through the actual season. Next week, we'll get into some SEC teams, their bowl games, start looking at the portal, things that are taking place. Probably a couple interviews in the offseason. We'll get to our spring ball, talk about spring games, where kids are going, what you can expect to see, maybe try to find some more things to show as we try to ramp that up just a little bit more. Please subscribe, iTunes. Please subscribe on Spotify, YouTube as well. Trying to continue climbing that number. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back next week.